Dr. Wong is a tax advisor and a financial educator. He does not sell stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or Wall Street securities. No CDOs or CMOs. His goal is to safely maximize retirement income and reduce taxes for his clients. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure, my privilege again to introduce to you Dr. Harold Wong. Dr. Wong.
Very quickly, in the limited time that I have, just a quick personal background about me. Angela came to the U.S. in 1974. I was going the other way. In 74, I got my doctorate in economics, and I was probably the only PhD in economics that was voluntarily headed to Southeast Asia as an independent contractor. So I was not restricted by the civilized rules of the U.S. Armed Forces, so I could contract out with the Thai Navy, Malaysia, and without the normal boundaries of what you could do to the communists there. So it comes from an old family background. My mom was number 12 of 13, born in China. Number 13 was trained as a pilot by the Flying Tigers, and so with General Chennault and a group of so-called volunteers or mercenaries on the western part of Asia, by themselves, they held off the whole Japanese Air Force in that period. So that's the type of background I came through. So just going back to Southeast Asia to settle a few scores for the family that was killed was just part of the honor of the family. So now, that's why we are in such a great country in the United States. And I'm going to talk to you about no BS. Let's just go to some of the slides right now. Basically, this is the economy we want. This is what we have. And as my good friend, Attorney Eckley says, even if you're making a lot of money in the last year, year and a half, beware. Now, I'm talking mainly to an Asian group, so you understand that we have a savings rate that's dramatically different than the average American. The average Chinese person or Asian person that has any experience with being a refugee saves 20 to 40% of their income. That's what you should be doing. I have gotten as low as spending 3% of a 7-figure income, and last year I spent 10% of my income. So we need to flip the pyramid around. As we say, and I've all said, if you earn a Western dollar, but you spend no more than 10% of your income, and you minimize your taxes, eventually you'll be able to take care of your kids, your relatives, and your charities. Politics prevents the solution. The answers are very clear. If I was elected economic czar, or emperor, where I could make unilateral decisions, I could get this economy going right away. 5-point plan. 1, go to a flat tax. For decades, Hong Kong had a maximum 15% flat tax. The savings you would have in record keeping and the political influence of the lobbyists would be dramatic. It'd be an atomic bomb that would get this economy going. Next, you would give a lower tax rate so the corporations could bring back the 1 or 2 trillion they have parked overseas. Third, you would have the 101st Airborne come back from the overseas war, and you would send them on a sweep up and down the East Coast with a minimum goal to arrest and execute at least 250,000 that were involved in the crash of our economy and the stealing of money from Main Street. So, if you know the history of the world, and many of you haven't had a chance to be in conflicts in the third world, when you have a revolution in the third world, you line up the drug dealers, the intellectuals that could lead the opposition, the bankers, and you shoot them all at the same time after being tortured suitably. So those of you who read my column, and we have the blog site, all of you should have one of these articles. If they haven't passed out, I brought one for everyone. We'll figure out some way of getting them passed out. There's a blog site. You can read all of my columns for the last 62 months since I've had the column. One of the interesting articles 2.5 years ago was I looked at unemployment and said, Is America going toward Europe or the Asian model? I simply took unemployment, which is the key index of misery, because recession is, if you've heard that of someone like a neighbor or friend is unemployed. A depression is when you are unemployed. And I simply match countries by size of the gross national product, like US versus China, Greece versus a comparable, Italy versus comparable, Spain versus a comparable, and the unemployment rates in Asia versus their comparable size economy in Europe are dramatically different. So, which way are we going? By historical measures, we're definitely going toward Greece as opposed to the traditions that made America great. Well, the fiscal cliff, many components to it. I won't go through all of them. The only thing that was sort of settled is making permanent the 2001 Bush tax cuts. Now, when I say permanent, it's not permanent because less than 2 weeks after signing that bill, the administration is talking about more taxes. So, here's the calendar. The U.S. debt limit comes up, tax rates of top earners rise, the debt ceiling fight becomes, the sequester or the mandatory budget cuts has been only put off for 2 months, and then the government band-aid expires. The cliff impact from the tax rate increases, this is on average, but that does not include the Social Security taxes. So it goes up back to its original 6.2% for an employee share. We had a holiday for a year or two. So basically, an extra 2%, if you're making $100,000, that's another $2,000 out of your pocket. This is a joke. $4 trillion in spending over the next 10 years, tax hikes. Some analysis show that for every $41 of tax increases, there was $1 of true spending cuts. Total joke. The debt crisis is not solved. We're going to be hit with it. The budget battle. This is the death-defying work that Congress does. Yes, a real evil Knievel's there, as you can see, working without a parachute. Okay, here's what Warren Buffett said a few years ago. It's still true. He said, buy stock in a company that's so good that an idiot can run it, because sooner or later, one will. Now I think that sort of applies to the country too. And he said that in 2007, still holds. The drag on the economy, 4 different scenarios. You can refer to the December 1st column I did, the second on the fiscal cliff, and I'll give you 4 different scenarios of what will happen to the stock market, the bond market, the real estate market, interest rate market, based on what your crystal ball says. 4 different scenarios. This is the slowest recovery in U.S. history. Notice over there the forecast by month. Every few months, the U.S. government or Congressional Budget Office, or in this case the Federal Reserve, is reducing their economic growth estimate. So, unprecedented monetary expansion. One of my favorite slides in a longer talk is Ben Bernanke, Helicopter Ben, throwing the money out of the helicopter. Now, moving on, the U.S. government spends $1.50 for every dollar in revenue. Where do we borrow from? Well, China. Japan are the 2 largest holders of our foreign debt. Oil countries that hate our guts and give bounties to people in the Middle East that kill our men and women. Does that make any common sense to be borrowing for your enemy that gives bounties to kill your kids and your grandkids? No, it doesn't make any sense. By the way, part 4 of the restart of the economy would also to send the special forces and SEAL teams into all the political office and all the lobbyists in K Street and do a similar type of thing as well. Here it is. Household debt to income ratio. Got ridiculous. We still haven't even come close to what the norm is. So Attorney Eckley is right that you're enjoying making money in this temporary real estate boom. How long can it last? Now, we've had a near record level of residential real estate. vacant real estate throughout the country. Luckily, Arizona does not have as big a problem as the U.S. However, unemployment is still a problem. Forget the official unemployment rate that you hear. It's double that when you count the discouraged workers and the part-timers. It's a challenge. Debt is a percentage of GDP, tremendous excess capacity in the U.S., shortage of where we should be, decline and fall of Europe. The European crisis has not gone away. Here's the euro area in recession. Notice that there's no decoupling between the U.S. and the Europe. Arizona economy, very quickly in the last 2 minutes I have, here's the key. Arizona, number 3 in moving destination from California to Arizona. Phoenix, number 2 moving destination in the U.S. Phoenix, number 5 best vacation value for the dollar. Population growth is directly linked to employment and economic growth. Phoenix, number 5 metro area in the U.S. for employment growth. You see how it's linked together. Arizona consumer confidence is improving. The article you have, or you'll be able to read through it. That's part 3 of the 3-part series of the Fiscal Cliff. Go to the blog site and read the other 2 parts. Now, in this article, I want to point out real estate is not the only solution. At the end of the article, I say, what are the alternatives to our low interest rate environment? Well, there's actually 3 alternatives. One is real estate. After the 60% decline in the median prices, you now can have a reasonable cash flow for buy and hold. Next, for those of you who are more open-minded, January 22nd, there's an unusual opportunity for the first time. The Bakken, the oil boom in North Dakota that may save our U.S. economy. 20 government officials, oil and gas men, are coming down to Scottsdale. You have a chance to find out about the oil boom all-day conference. Or you could investigate the private pension fund concept, which will guarantee a high rate of cash flow. In fact, Waterloo Canadian economists, 2 of the 3 of them being Chinese, saved the Canadian pension system. The good thing is, due to some changes, now you can get involved in these private ventures without being part of a large employer group. And if you want to find out more, I have a 2-hour seminar on the post-election economic, tax, and market forecast. It's free, first come, first served until we fill it up. And it's at the Windmill Suites, Saturday, a week from tomorrow, 10 a.m. to 1. And you'll have a chance to comment on what you think the economy is coming about. So free as part of our outreach from the Arizona Republic. And then I looked at a number of different images 2 days ago. And this one is the easiest to read because they're Asians from all over Asia. So, I won't use the Chinese saying for Happy New Year because it's not just a Chinese group here. But Happy New Year, Happy Asian New Year, the year of the snake. And if you can't find one around here because the rattlesnakes are sleeping, just go to Washington, D.C. and you find plenty of them there. Thank you.